on the basis that they can justify it, which in your case certainly you can, at LMCS, and in my view, the family representatives are entitled to have a copy if they wish. It can be put on a memory stick, and if you provide us with one, we'll give it to you. Anybody else who wants it will need to justify why they should have it, and of course I can rely on you all to exercise sensitivity about disseminating it to anybody other than those who need to know for the purposes of this inquiry. So thank you for that. Lastly, this, Mr. Lawrence, Mr. Lukhar from OSHA, are they here? No. Right. I just want to say that they're not here, but it can perhaps be passed on to them, that I understand the report from OSHA is to be, it has been finalised, and their counsel are examining it as we speak. I want to emphasise that obviously we want it, and we want it as soon as possible. And it should be made available to everybody as soon as possible, both from all of our points of view. I hope it's not going to be necessary to do anything draconian in making sure that we get it, but it's no use handing it to me at Easter of next year. I want it, if I may say so, we need it next week, and we'll do everything we can to ensure that we get it, and once we've got it, you'll have it. All right, those are the preliminary matters that I wanted to deal with. Is there anything else that...
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there's one matter I wish to raise. Since you conducted the site visit yesterday,
yeah.
If you can get permission to bring the chamber, the habitat, to the surface, for two reasons, so that you'll be able to have access to inspect it, and also that it's sitting on the line, so to speak, and I think the Paria would prefer if they can move it. But we did not want to do so until you had the opportunity to visit the scene and then grant leave for us to bring it up. But of course, it would require LMCS's consent because it's their asset, so to speak. But in the event that they may not be inclined to expend the resources to bring it up, Paria is prepared to do it and make it available to the Commission for viewing and after to be handed back to LMCS as the case may be. But it's not desirable to have it sit where it's at now.
Can I say for my part? This doesn't seem to be, yes. Can I say for my part, that seems to me an eminently sensible idea, and I would encourage it. It's not within my authority, as you'll appreciate, but it does seem to me wise and useful. I, for my part, would wish to see it. I know you're determined to put me back into PPE with hard hats and boots, but I think it would make some sense. I see no reason why LMCS would wish to keep it at the bottom of the ocean, and I can see no reason why you would want to keep it there either. So if between you can agree its extraction, I would have thought that that was the ideal thing to do, and I encourage it.
Yes.
I dare say you might feel it wise to at least inform OSHA,
yes, sir.
So that they're aware that that's what you're going to do.
We plan to take all those steps. We just wanted to ensure that there was no objection from the Commission's perspective.
Certainly not from me, on the contrary.
Yes, sure.
Thank you for that. Anything else from anyone else? No? Good. Well, then we'll get on. Mr. Maharaj.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the first witness for this morning would be Hassan Mohammed. Ms. Vijaya Maharaj will do the summary of the evidence, and then I will question him.
Okay. Where can we find the statement, please?
The statement is at Volume 2, page 1261.
Volume 2?
Yes, it's a witness statement bundle. Page 1261.
No, sorry, bear with me, I've got the wrong one.
The witness, one of the witnesses.
Yeah. It'll be here somewhere. Just give me a moment. Ah, here we are. Page
1264.
I've got it. Thank you very much. Sorry to keep. Yes. Yes, please.
Okay.
I
Hassan Mohammed
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that the evidence
that the evidence
I shall give to the court
I shall give to the court
in this case
in this case
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Yes, do sit down. Make yourself comfortable. I think you've got some water there if you need it. If there's any point in time when you feel you need a break or anything like that, just let us know, all right? First of all, we're going to summarize your evidence. Ms. Maharaj is going to summarize your evidence that you've given either by statement or in an interview. And once that's done and you've confirmed that that is accurate, there'll be a few other questions from Mr. Maharaj, all right? And then the other counsel will have some questions, I suspect, for you. All right?
Okay.
And as I understand it, your name is Hassan Mohammed, and you were the facilities engineer at Paria, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much. I leave it to Mr.
Thank you.
Maharaj.
Good morning, Mr. Mohammed.
Good morning.
Do you recall signing a witness statement on the 16th of August, 2022?
Yes, I do.
Yes, and can you confirm that that witness statement, the contents are true and correct?
Yes, they were.
I'll just read a summary of your statement.
Okay.
Mr. Mohammed was the facilities engineer at Paria and reported to Catherine Balkisoon, who's Paria's technical lead. He did preliminary work in the development of Paria's scope of works for the repairs at berth number 6, which were being carried out by LMCS's divers on the 25th of February 2022 when the incident occurred. He reviewed the draft scope of works which had been prepared utilizing the scope of works for a similar project done by LMCS in 2022, with some adjustments where appropriate. After reviewing the scope of works for the project, Mr. Mohammed passed it on to Mr. Manmohan Balkaran, maintenance lead in charge of the project. Mr. Mohammed says that one of the tasks permitted by Paria under permit to work number 9320, issued on the 25th of February 2022, was to conduct a pressure test on the flange weld in order to ensure that the line does not leak under pressure and that the weld was of sound quality. On the 25th of February 2022, at about 12:30 p.m., that is before the incident occurred, Mr. Mohammed, who was at home at the time, was contacted by telephone by one Mr. Adish Ramlogan and told that LMCS was having challenges with pressure testing the flange due to the out of roundness of the line, which prevented a seal from forming between the line and a carber plug to perform the pressure test. Accordingly, the pressure test could not be done on the flange. Mr. Mohammed says that he discussed the testing with Mr. Ramlogan, who was on the site witnessing the carber plug testing attempts being done by LMCS through their subcontractor Isotech. Mr. Ramlogan and Mr. Mohammed discussed all of the testing which had been done prior to and during the welding of the flange on a previous day. The testing included a 100% VT being a visual test and a 100% PT being a penetrant test, both of which were witnessed by Mr. Ramlogan. The penetrant test is a test in which a solvent is used to clean the weld to be inspected. Then a dye penetrant is applied to the weld and allowed to set for a while. The dye is then wiped off and a developer is then sprayed onto the weld. If there are any defects in the weld, it would show up as a different color. Mr. Mohammed told Mr. Ramlogan that in lieu of the carber test, and in consultation with Paria Inspector Mr. Shiraz Hussain, a service test will be carried out once the repairs were completed, together with a dive test. On Friday, 25th February 2022, after the incident occurred, Mr. Mohammed was contacted by Mr. Michael Way at approximately 6 p.m. and instructed to arrange for a borescope inspection of the line. He was later advised that the inspection was unsuccessful as the light on top of the borescope probe was insufficient. On Saturday, 26 February 2022, at about 5:40 p.m., Mr. Mohammed arranged for 2 IOCL rental pumps to be loaded at berth 6, but they were replaced on Sunday, the 27th of February at 8 a.m. with 2 Lang pumps, as the latter were better suited for the intended purpose on that day. Mr. Mohammed said that the intended operation of the pumps was for the recovery of the bodies of the 4 missing divers. Mr. Mohammed was also present at the berths during the discovery of the bodies of the 4 divers on Monday the 28th of February 2022 and Wednesday the 2nd of March 2022. Mr. Mohammed, Mr. March will now ask you a few questions.
Can we at least confirm that you're content with that summary of your evidence?
Yes, yes,
You
I
are.
am.
There's nothing inaccurate that you detected?
No.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mohammed, I want you to help us with a few answers.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mohammed, I want you to help us with a few answers. At paragraph 6 of your witness statement, you state... Okay. At paragraph 6 of your witness statement, you stated that prior to the incident on the 25th of February 2022, you did some preliminary work in the development of Paria's scope of works, dated the 29th of April 2021, etc., etc. What I want to ask you is that you reviewed the scope of works before it was passed to Mr. Balkaran, Mr. Manmohan Balkaran. Am I correct?
I did a partial review for the components of the scope in which I would have had involvement.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the...
I did a partial review for sections of the scope in which I was involved.
And what section of the scope was that?
So within the scope of works, my function would have been to engage in technical discussions related to understanding the integrity of the pipeline and what repairs were required. So I would have had discussions with the Paria's Inspector, Zair Hussain, and the planner who was developing the scope to ascertain what repairs should be done. So my involvement is to determine what sections of the line should be changed. And also the inspection requirements, the technical requirements as it relates to welding, pressure testing, and coating.
Okay.
Those were my involvement.
Do you have any, or did you at the time have any experience in subsea maintenance work?
Prior to this, I would have done a scope, had same involvement in a scope similar, the scope referred to in 2020. Yes, so I am familiar with repairs of involving fabrication and repairs.
Okay, okay. I want to show you the scope of works. It's in volume 2 of the core bundle at page 564. Have you seen it? All right. I want you to look at, you see a heading isolation list?
Correct.
Right. Now, if you could help us, you see something written there, estimated volume of product between isolation points, 2,000 barrels.
Correct.
Could you help us whether that was an estimate of the volume in sea line 36
It was
of
an
the
estimate.
contents between berths 5 and 6?
Correct. It was just an estimate at the scope of works development phase.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm struggling to hear you.
Okay.
I wonder if you just keep your voice up a little bit.
Okay. Yes, it was an estimate based on the length of the line at the scope of works development phase. At that time, a verification wasn't done of the volume, but yes, an estimate.
Right, and that would have included the topside piping and the underwater piping?
No, the riser sections and
Just
the
riser section.
subsea. Yeah.
Okay. You said the riser section?
The both riser sections and the subsea section as well.
Okay, see, okay,
Yeah.
okay. As far as you know, was the scope of works for sea line 36, did it require the line to be drained?
It required the line to be drained to a point where the repair can be carried out, not fully drained necessarily.
Okay, I want to show you the same volume, page 564. At paragraph 315. 315, page 564. 3.15. You see that?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Right. I'll read it slowly for you. Properly coordinate works with Paria operations, maintenance, and HSE personnel to perform the following activities, including but not limited to isolation, de-isolation, depressurization, pressurization, and draining / filling product from line SL36 at berth 6 and berth 5. Okay? So the works included draining of the line, but do you know how much draining?
The scope of work development phase, no. It was meant to provide guidance that at whatever level the repair is to be carried out, the production will be removed to and below that level at least.
But the quantity was not mentioned.
It was not defined, no.
At page, I want you to also look at page 598. Addendum number 1. You see addendum number 1?
Correct.
And that is a document from Paria, okay?
Yes.
Correct. And you see a query, who is responsible for pumping back from berths to clear the lines with water? Response, the contractor is responsible for the safe removal of hydrocarbon contents from the line and to ensure that the line is clear and dry.
Yeah.
Is that what you understood the works to be?
This addendum wasn't prepared by myself.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
But it's headed Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited.
It does.
It does.
Yes.
Well, even if it wasn't your responsibility, is it, could you answer the question, is it what you understood the position to be?
What I would understand is that the company is asking for the line to be clear and dry. I don't know if they mean up to the point where the repair is to be carried out safely. It depends on the methodology to be used to repair the line. I am unsure.
In the works you did on the scope of works and in the services you performed, did you at any time recognize that the scope of works could have created a differential pressure situation or delta P hazard?
At the scope of work development, plain and obvious risks were considered.
I'm sorry?
At the scope of works development phase for my involvement, plain and obvious risks associated with the job were considered. Hence the use of a migration barrier. That was included, right? That would have been looking at potential for occupants in the chamber being exposed to toxic gases and also a fire. Risk associated with this job being a specialist job were not considered, as this job was, for all intents and purposes, was to be considered as a turnkey project.
As a?
Turnkey project, where Paria Fuel Trading will define what is to be done, identify any plain and obvious risks that we would face on a day-to-day basis at our facility, which is, example, fire, exposure to toxic gases, similar to the refinery, and we would have relied at our Paria's safe system of work, which is our permit to work at the execution phase to identify all risks associated with the task to be done. Because at the scope of work development phase, we would not know which method the vendor will be using to carry out the repair. So all the risk would not be known.
Okay, so Mr. Mohammed,
Yeah.
as I understand it, you are familiar with the contents of the scope of works, not so?
Yes,
Right. The contents of the scope of works included the draining of the line.
yes.
Right.
At
The
that
contents
point.
of the scope of works also included installation of a migration barrier, these plugs, correct?
A migration barrier, correct.
Yes. And the migration barrier was the mechanical plug and the inflatable plug.
No, the migration barrier is a barrier alone. The migration barrier in this context is referring to the mechanical plug.
The mechanical plug.
No reference was made to use of inflatable plugs. And again, the migration barrier was put there for the risk, the plain and obvious risk.
So you are telling us today that the scope of works did not envisage the insertion of an inflatable plug?
At that time, no.
When you mean at that time, what do you mean?
At the scope of works development phase, because we would not know how the contractor is going to execute the works, I was not aware of that.
So it involved a mechanical plug.
Correct.
It involved the C-line 36.
Correct.
And the plug was to cover C-line 36. That mechanical plug.
The mechanical plug, correct.
Yes.
The migration barrier, correct.
And it involved a habitat going over C-line 36.
Correct.
And are you aware that that would have created a differential pressure from the pipe and the habitat?
At that time, no.
At that time, you were not aware?
No.
Are you aware now, on reflection?
It will be dependent on how much product was drained from the line, if the condition exists.
Right.
I am unsure how much was drained.
If the line was clear and dry, assuming the line was clear and dry,
Correct.
would you agree that on reflection would have been a latent hazardous differential pressure situation?
Yes.
Yes.
Ramesh, I'd just like to ask a question. Good morning, sir. And listening to you there, what I want to ascertain is, coming up with the scope of work, in the planning phases of the scope of work, were you part of any risk assessment team, hazard identification, and or equivalent exercise?
No, I was involved more towards the technical side, which is understanding the line integrity, the repair to be done, and the requirements for repair as it relates to inspection and quality. I did not have no involvement in any risk assessment at that phase.
At which phase?
The
Planning?
The planning phase.
But, okay. Just clarify for me, because how I'm hearing it is that you were quite integral in the planning or the development of the scope of work. Isn't the development of the scope of work in the planning phase?
There's different aspects of the development of the scope of works. Like in my case, I was involved in what repair was to be done and why it should be done.
Okay.
That is the role I played, a technical role in that regard.
Okay, so one last question, and take it off from Mr. Maraj, is you indicated that you were involved in the previous scope of work with LMCS
but you indicated that there were just several adjustments. The scope of work was similar, but there were adjustments. Was a lessons learned exercise and or equivalent driving that sort of difference or adjustments that had to be made from the previous scope of work that he was involved in?
So now let's like to explain how it was similar, right? C line 36. Oh, sorry, my apologies. C line 36 goes from the onshore Paria to bird 5. Then it goes from bird 5 to bird 6. The section that goes from onshore to bird 5, there's a riser there. That riser had a clamp just below mean sea level. That is a repair that was done successfully by LMCS in 2020. C line 36 in 2021 had a clamp approximately 8 to 10 feet below mean sea level. Both repairs required the use of a hyperbaric chamber and working below the sea level. The adjustments that were made to the scope was where the repair was to be conducted and improvements to the technical and inspection requirements as it relates to quality.
All right, thank you for that. Just one last part. So at the end of project workshops and stuff, do you guys implement a lessons learned or have a lessons learned exercise so there are loadings from the previous scope to take into the new scope, regardless of the minute changes or anything? How is that captured and how are those lessons learned transferred onto similar scopes?
So would you agree that Paria had a duty, if the job was not being done in accordance with what was approved, to stop the job?
The role that I would have played, the information from the test would have been shared with me, and I would have communicated it, would have had to communicate it with the Paria supervisor, who would then communicate to the contractor. I do not stop the work on that project, as I am not the supervisor. I provide technical support.
But would you agree with me that in a job like this, Paria manages any change of policy to be done to the job?
Yes, it does.
Yes. Tell me if you could answer this question. What risks could have been exposed to the divers by the waiving of the carbon test?
From my understanding, none.
None. So if there was a plug on the pipeline and there was a leak on the riser, could there have been any risk?
The well that was to be inspected,
I'm sorry?
the well that was to be carbon tested is
Yes.
above the inflatable plug and mechanical plug.
Oh,
So-
so
so
on
that-
that basis you say there could have been no risk?
There's no risk.
Okay. All right. On the morning of Saturday, the 26th of February, you were given instructions to assist in the mobilization of 2 rental pumps for berths 5 and berth 6, correct? And that was at about 5:40 p.m.
Correct.
Were you told, were you given instructions what those pumps were to be for, were to be used for?
At that time, no.
No. You had no instructions whatsoever as to what those pumps were to be used for?
I was just told to walk through the process to have the pumps mobilized safely to the site.
No further question.
Before I pass you on to the other counsel who may want to ask you something, can I just take you back briefly, please, to page 598, please. It's in the core bundle, volume 2, page 598. It's the addendum that you were asked about in the addendum to the works, miscellaneous repairs and refurbishment works. Right, and could you just scroll down so that we include in that lines 1 to 2, please? Yes, thank you. Could you just explain to us, please, what the purpose of this document is? It's described as a miscellaneous repairs and refurbishment works at berth 5 and 6, and addendum 1. What's the point of it?
Okay, so when a tender, like in the case of...
Try and keep your voice up.
Okay, oh, my apologies.
No, it's all right.
When, in the case of this job, this was all intents and purposes was to be a turnkey project where Paria will specify what repairs are to be done.
Yeah.
Not how the repairs are to be done. So vendors are to come up with their own methodology and ask any questions related.
Who's asking the question?
Vendors. So when the tenders, the vendors, the
vendor.
contractors.
Right.
So when this tender document is prepared, it is sent to the contractors, and they will have an opportunity to ask any questions about these works to be done or anything related to how they plan to do it. They can ask.
So
this is the response. This is the response document to the questions that are compiled.
So, if I can answer my own question, I hope in this way. This is intended to sort out any queries.
Correct.
And so the contractor can ask the query, and Paria, the contractee, can answer them.
Correct.
So the question in number 1 is, who is responsible for pumping back from the berths to clear the lines with water? That's the first question, isn't it?
Yes.
And the answer to that is, from Paria, the contractor is responsible for the safe removal of hydrocarbon contents from the line.
Correct.
And to ensure that the line is clear and dry.
Okay. Correct.
That's what it says, isn't it?
Correct. That's what it says, yes.
I appreciate that. Now, and you've told us that this is not your responsibility, but you can help us perhaps, because it seems, on the face of it at any rate, a line, when we're talking about a line, we're talking about the pipe, aren't we?
But this particular line is like a U.
Yes.
So it has 2 risers and a horizontal, yes.
I don't really care which
Yeah.
shape it is,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
a line, is the pipe, isn't it? When we
Correct.
talk about a line,
Correct.
in your terms, it's a piece of piping.
Correct.
And if the piping has to be clear and dry, what do you understand that to mean?
Clear and dry.
In other words, nothing in it.
Correct.
Is that what it means?
Correct.
To you, it means nothing in it, doesn't it?
Correct.
I mean, tell me if I've got this wrong.
Well,
I don't want to,
no,
I don't want to
it-
go
it-
away
it
with the wrong...
depends.
Just a minute. I don't want to go away with
Yeah.
the wrong impression, all right?
Yeah.
I need to understand precisely what it means to you. What it means to me, maybe I may have got it wrong, so you need to help me, all right? If you are saying that the line needs to be clear and dry, this is you, Paria, not you personally, all right? Needs to be clear and dry. What do I take from that?
I would interpret it that wherever the repairs have to be carried out, the line is to be product-free. That's what, working in the hydrocarbon industry, I would understand that as the line needs to be hydrocarbon-free at that point as minimum, as a minimum.
No. You're saying that it means just the little bit above the plug? Is that what that's supposed to mean? Are you really saying that that's what it's supposed to mean?
I understand what you mean by clear and dry, but I would interpret it as a minimum, at least that area needs to be clear.
This document is supposed to sort out queries, isn't it?
Correct, yeah.
It's supposed to clear up
Yeah.
any ambiguities, isn't it? Is that at the very best ambiguous and at worst misleading?
But it says clear and dry, so you're correct. You can interpret it as clear and dry, it depends, yeah.
It wasn't, was it?
Sorry?
It wasn't clear and dry, was it?
I do not know.
You don't know?
If the
don't
line,
know
if the
what
line
happened?
was,
Have you not
if,
read the papers?
if the line was cleared and dry,
Yes.
I don't know how much product was remaining in the line to
Right.
answer that. I can't say if it was cleared and dry.
All right.
Yeah,
Very well.
yeah,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Chairman, I just want to indicate that we did discharge your directive and advise the witnesses not to read the papers and try not to follow anything on the media.
I'm sure you did. But long before this commission was conceived of, there was very considerable press tension, as you will no doubt recall. I've had the opportunity of reading it in more recent times. I dare say the public were reading it at the time. Be that as it may, I've heard your answers. I'm grateful for those. Thank you very much. I pass you over now to counsel.
I would have LMCS, Kamini Prasad Miraj.
Okay.
Mr. Mohammed,
No questions.
I thought the order, Mr. Chairman, was we would re-examine last. He's our witness, so in case we have anything to clarify at the end, I thought that's...
Mr. Peterson,
I thought that was the order.
He is not your witness. He is our witness.
When
We've asked him questions. I have thought I'd made it clear that I expected people to cross-examine any questions that they had in the order as I set it out on Monday. If you're saying to me you'd like to go last, last means, in my book, before any re-examination from Mr. Maharaj. If you would prefer to hear what other questions there are, since he is a witness employed by your client, I would have no objection to that.
Well, that's what I understand. Well, it's my understanding. So I thought the understanding was that a witness that was called by my client, other lawyers would ask questions, then we will ask, and then Commission Counsel would have the last say, so to speak.
Well, as I say,
that's my misunderstanding.
I thought I'd made our position clear as to how we were going to approach it, but I don't have a particular objection to that course.
Thank you, sir.
If that helps you, help us, which is why we're all here. So
yes,
if you're saying you would like to go after all other counsel of interest, ask him any questions, then I have no difficulty with that.
Thank you, sir. I thought that was only with respect to witnesses that we were calling.
Well, why don't we set that as the process here on in after?
Thank you, sir.
And those who have got witnesses who are employed by their clients can do the same.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Very well. So I'll pass it over to you.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Mr. Mohammed, in your witness statement, you have said at your paragraph 5, number 7, that as part of your duties, you maintain updated key engineering data, including the process and instrumentation diagrams, drawings, technical specifications, and area classification maps of terminal operations. Correct?
Correct.
In your answer to counsel for the Commission, you use the terminology line integrity in relation to how the scope of works was developed in terms of what your contribution was in its development. All right. So, can you say, in determining the line integrity, and being that you are saying part of your duty is to maintain updated key data and drawings, whether any particular drawing was used by you?
Yes, there were drawings that were taken from Petrotrin that were considered.
Taken from Petrotrin?
Yes. As-built drawings and the bill of materials for the pipeline, yes, to understand the design.
And were those drawings disclosed to the vendors, meaning the contractors that the invitation went out to?
At that time, it was not required. A sketch was provided.
A sketch was provided?
Yes.
And from those drawings, you would have been able to determine exactly what in the line needed to be repaired?
I would have determined what needed to be repaired from the inspection data, not from the drawings.
Inspection data is something separate?
Data. That is, yes, collecting thickness data on the pipeline and understanding where the defects are.
So you would you have had to read the inspection data in collaboration with the drawings?
The inspection data guided the process.
And that alone?
Yes, where the repairs were to be carried out, correct, the inspection data.
All right. So you had no reference at that point in the development of the scope to drawings?
The drawings were used to understand the materials of construction of the pipeline for the section to be replaced.
Just the materials?
Of construction, correct.
Not layout?
No.
Not configuration?
For the riser section, no.
Can I have page 29, 22 of the bundle of submissions shown to Mr. Mohammed?
Where are we going?
The bundles of submission. The bundle of submissions, page 29, 22.
What is it you're asking?
There is a drawing, please, Mr. Chairman.
It's a drawing?
It's a drawing.
All right, I think it's all right, there it is.
Up on the screen now.
I don't think it's been copied into our individual printed bundles. It's just on the entirety of the bundles,
yes.
which is You'll appreciate we didn't print 20,000 pages for each council.
Same here, please. So you're seeing, are you seeing that drawing?
Yes, I am.
All right. Can you give me the date of that drawing? Okay.
There are a few dates.
I am seeing the 10th of January 2022 to the bottom of the, in blue. They're below the words approved by J. Beckles on the 7th of the 1st, 2022.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah? So this would have been, can you tell me what we're looking at?
I did not prepare the drawing. I was part of this.
You did not prepare this drawing?
I did not.
And you have no idea what this drawing is of?
No, I do. At this time, no, I do not.
Oh, okay. All right. I have no further questions on it.
Have you seen that before, that drawing?
No.
Thank you. You can take that down. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Introduce yourself again, please, so everyone knows who you are and who you represent.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Prakash Ramada on behalf of the Kurban family and Yusuf Henry. Good day, Mr. Mohammed. Had there ever been in the process a meeting with all of the stakeholders before the work actually started, including yourself, all those who would have helped design and implement, oversee to ensure a successful completion of the project?
There would have been a kickoff meeting.
I didn't ask you whether there would have been.
Yeah, there would.
Were you in such a meeting?
No, I was not.
Thank you. In relation to the addendum to which you've spoken earlier about the need to clear the line, did you ever see that addendum before today? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Did you sign off on that at all?
No.
Could you tell us the date that that addendum was introduced?
Introduced to me?
No, to the entire proceedings.
I am not sure.
What do you mean by entire proceedings?
I'm sorry. Chairman, to be fair to the witness, let me put it like this. When was the first time you actually saw this addendum?
On going through the submissions online on the CU website.
When?
Approximately a month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah.
You would consider the contents of that addendum to be critically important, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yes. Was that addendum ever discussed in a meeting with all of the stakeholders? Yes or no?
I was not involved in the discussion.
Thank you very much. If you could, with your kind leave, Mr. Chairman, have the addendum brought up, please. And if you could scroll to the lower part where there would be an area for signature. Is that addendum signed, sir, by anyone from either Paria or contractor representative?
This one, no.
Thank you very much. That'll be all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Can we have one of you ask questions rather than both, please?
This morning, yes.
Can you introduce yourselves so that the public know who you are and who you're representing?
Good morning. My name is Nairi Alfonso, and I represent the interest of the Seaman and Waterfront Trade Union, SWWTU. Yes, but I'll bring it closer. So I'll just repeat that. My name is Nairi Alfonso, and I represent the interest of the Seaman and Waterfront Trade Union. Good morning, Mr. Mohammed. I just have one or two questions for you, please. I noticed you say that you are facilities engineer mechanical at Paria, yes?
Correct.
Could you help us out with what, if you have any qualifications, any any qualifications of any nature, degrees, anything?
I'm a mechanical engineer from UWI. I have my master's in engineering, API, pipeline inspector certification, pressure vessel certification, certified quality engineer.
Okay, thank you. And how long have you worked with Paria?
Approximately 7 years, and I would have worked in total approximately 11 years as an engineer.
Mr. Mohammed, would that mean that you worked with Petrotron before then?
Correct.
Thank you. You mentioned when you were being questioned this morning, and in paragraph 6 of your witness statement as well, that basically you piggybacked, or not you, the corporate you, Paria would have used a similar scope of works used in a previous job in 2020. Yes?
Paria used the previous scope of works as a starting point.
As a starting point, okay.
Yes.
And you mentioned, I believe, something about lessons, you would have reviewed, when you're using it as a starting point, you would have reviewed any lessons learned from the 2020 project. Did you say that earlier this morning?
The group working on the scope would have, yes.
Okay. Could you tell us anything about any lessons learned?
At this time, I can't remember.
You can't remember?
At this time, no.
At this time?
No.
Okay. In relation to the 2020 job, which was on sea line 36, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Was there any aspect of that job that involved draining of a pipeline?
I am not sure. I am not involved in the execution of the works, more so the planning phase.
Okay, so you reviewed the scope of work in relation to the 2020 plan as well?
Correct.
Okay. And you can't recall whether any line in relation to that project required draining or removing the contents or lessening the contents or completely clearing the contents?
I can't recall.
You can't recall.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sorry, just I beg your pardon. And I'll just ask again, because I have an insistent junior. You don't recall any lessons learned in that 2020, this one? Okay. So this was a team effort in 2020 to do the scope of works, yes?
Okay, so let me explain. The scope of works goes through different groups within the company. There's a technical group that will create the scope of works based on the works to be done. Like I would have said previously, for all intents and purposes, this job was to be done as a turnkey project, where the company would understand the integrity of the asset and where the repairs are to be done. Solely that, where the repairs are to be done and the material specification. This was included in the scope of works, along with contractors' requirements and contractors' responsibilities and Paria's responsibilities. When this is done, this will be tendered out, and there would be an execution team, which is the maintenance department, which will execute the works. I am not part of the maintenance team. I'm part of the technical team.
Was there, I got you, Mr. Mohammed. In relation to the 2020, so I've left 2020 alone. 2022, which is the subject matter of this inquiry. Yes. Was there any debriefing, any I want to be careful, post-mortem type meeting after this incident in which lessons learned in terms of methodology of the work or scope of work or what went wrong? Is there anything like that? Anything like that happened that you were a participant in?
There would have been internal discussions and opinions.
There would have been, or there were?
There were internal discussions and opinions about what could have been the possible scenarios.
Maybe what could have been done differently?
What could have been done different, not necessarily differently, but what could have been the cause?
Okay, what could have been the cause of what transpired in February this year?
Correct.
Okay. Were you a participant in that meeting? In those meetings, as you said, internal discussions. It could be more than one meeting.
I can't recall.
You can't recall from February or March that you were in a meeting?
It would have been passing conversations with colleagues. It wasn't specific, like sit-down meetings where minutes were taken and these things.
Were there meetings, Mr. Mohammed?
Official meetings that I am aware of? No.
There were no official meetings that you're aware of?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed.
It follows from that you didn't attend any such meetings, even if there were any.
Correct.
Thank you. Yes. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mutu will question this witness.
Welcome, Mr.
He has to do some of the lifting.
Very well. Sharing the burden. Yes.
Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning.
And other members. Mr. Mohammed, you asked a series of questions about the addendum which followed the tender process. I want to put that in context, and I'd like you to help me. Is it correct to say that this project was a project that invited a competitive tendering process?
Yes, it did.
Good. And you told us you were involved in the development of the scope of works for that project. Is that correct? In some aspects of it.
The technical requirements, yes.
Yes. And is it correct to say that when you have a competitive tender process, the employer sets out the work that it wants done and goes into the marketplace to invite contractors to bid for those works?
Correct.
Yes. Would it be also fair to say that the employer expects contractors to submit bids saying the manner in which they intend to execute those works?
Correct.
Good. And would it also be correct to say that the bids for contractors come in after questions are answered by way of the addendum process?
Correct.
Good. So when the addendum you were shown this morning was issued, that's the addendum at page 598, would it also be correct to say that no contractor had submitted a bid at that point in time?
Correct.
Good. And you will accept, will you not, that when the contractor receives this scope, it is incumbent upon the contractor to decide how it executes the works?
Correct.
Yes. And is it not also true that even if an employer contemplates the performance of the scope of works in a particular manner, it is open to a contractor to bid to carry out the scope by virtue of a different method of performance than that envisaged by the employer?
Correct.
Yes. And is it not the fact that in this case, that is precisely, if we are to accept that the addendum is to be construed in a way that the line is to be emptied in its entirety, if we are to accept that, is it not correct that when the contractor submitted his bid, he suggested a different method of performance? I'd like to take you to document 6 or page 659, which forms part of LMCS's project execution plan. Page 659. It's now on the screen, Chairman.
659. I just need to find it in my bundle.
Yes.
I'll just give you a moment. Thank you.
I'd like to take you to the bottom half of that page, Mr. Mohammed. You will see a heading, Procedure for Removal of Line Content Between Berth 5 and Berth 6. You see that?
Correct.
Good. So let's just find ourselves back in context again. Would you accept this document came after the addendum at page 598?
Correct.
Good. So would you also accept that this is the contractor saying to the employer, this is how I intend to execute the works?
Yes.
Good. And let's go to the last bullet point on that page. And let's read it together. Once level in the riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed. You see that?
Yes.
Would you therefore agree with me that what the contractor is saying to the employer is whatever you've invited in your tender documents or you've said in your appendix or addendum, the scope of works that you want done, this is how I propose to do it?
Yes.
Yes. And this is it. Would you also agree with me that this is a different method than simply emptying the line?
Correct.
Good. Would you also agree with me that Paria was open, it was open to Paria to reject that or accept it?
Correct.
Good. And in this case, you also agree that the contractor, LMCS, was the one possessing all the specialist knowledge and expertise to carry out the works?
Considering that it was to be executed as a turnkey project, yes.
Yes.
It is expected.
And is it not also correct to say that Paria would have known of this document?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And is it also not correct to say that Paria accepted the contractor's works, the contractor's bid, in the full knowledge that the contractor was saying that it will execute the works in a manner not by the full emptying of the line, but that only if the line is emptied at 35 feet below sea level?
Yes.
And this is what the contractor was representing it could do as a specialist contractor. Correct?
Correct.
And there was no reason to believe that the contractor couldn't do the works in this manner, as far as you are aware.
It goes back to what I said, depending on where the repairs are to be carried out, once the line is suitably drained at or below that level,
Yes.
yes, it can be done.
Yes, and this was the same contractor who had successfully executed works of this nature 1 year before for Paria.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for this witness. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maharaj?
Yes. In the document you were shown by Mr. Mutu at page 659, and you were shown about, where is 35? Yeah. And it was pointed out at the last bullet on that point. Once level in the riser has dropped to 35 feet below sea level, a line plug will be installed. Okay? And you answer that. Okay? If you look above that, the one just above that, using a driven pump, pump out approximately 300 barrels of line content. You see that?
Yes, correct.
And what that means, what you understand that to mean?
An approximate volume of 300 barrels.
To pump out.
Correct.
Correct. Now, you were asked about the contractual process. The contractual process in this case, and you are experienced in this because you work at Paria, you had a scope of works developed by Paria, correct?
Correct.
Then that was put out. Then you would have had questions asked about the scope of works by LMC,
Correct.
LMCS. Then you would have method statements submitted to Paria in relation to how to do the work. Am I correct?
Correct.
Then you would have Paria approve the method statements in this case.
From my understanding,
Yes.
from my understanding, the review that Paria does for method statements, because we don't have the specialist knowledge of how to do the works, is if the methods captures the works to be done and the inspection and quality requirements.
So are you saying that Paria approved the method statements without having the expertise?
Specific to subsea repairs? Correct.
In respect of this contract, are you saying that Paria did not approve the method statements?
Paria approved the method statement as it relates to the inspection and quality requirements and the list of works to be completed at the end of the project.
I am asking you,
Yes.
the method of how the work was to be done,
Correct.
didn't Paria approve the method statements in this case? Mr. Mohammed?
For this job, I was not involved in the review of the method statement.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I'm suggesting to you, Paria approved the method statements that were submitted by
Okay.
LMCS.
Okay.
I'm also putting to you that Paria approved the risk assessments done by LMCS.
Okay.
Paria also approved the emergency response done by LMCS.
Okay.
And that is how Paria awarded the contract to LMCS. What do you have to say about that?
I am unsure if this particular method statement used for execution was the method statement that was awarded on, because the method statement is a live document that could change.
Okay.
Right, so I just want to be clear about that.
But Paria, apart from approving the contract, Mr. Mohammed,
Yeah.
Paria monitored the implementation of the contract.
Correct.
Paria held out itself as having the expertise through Kenson to monitor this project. Isn't that so?
Paria would have had their roles and responsibility outlined in the contract clearly.
Why would Paria have two persons or one person topside while these works were being done in the hyperbaric chamber in the habitat, monitoring, taking a video? Wasn't Paria monitoring compliance of this job?
At this exact the moment when the incident occurred,
Yes, yes.
I am unsure who was on site and
you're
monitoring.
unsure.
I do not know
But
the
you
details.
know about the procedure that Paria used to monitor works.
Okay, so there's...
You have answered a lot of questions to Mr. Mutu.
Okay, so...
You know of the procedure.
Right, so...
Isn't one of the procedures that Paria...
Is he allowed to answer at least one of the questions?
I think that's a fair observation.
Much obliged by.
Okay, so let me explain.
And also, Mr.
Let me-
Chairman, if I may, the witness is here. He's indicated what his role is. I asked him about the tendering process. Mr. Maraj is asking him to commit to a whole range of activities well beyond his job description. We have other witnesses who will be coming.
I think that's a fair point as well.
Oh, okay,
Mr. Farage.
I'll
We have coming after this witness, Mr. Wee, who perhaps
okay.
can deal with some of
Okay.
these questions for you.
Okay.
So that's to maybe help you. In the scope of works, because this is a turnkey project, Paria's responsibility and the contractor's responsibilities were outlined. I don't know if you all want to refer to that. Maybe we could understand what was Paria's responsibility related to this project.
Okay, Mr. Mohammed, I will accept what the chairman says, and I'll wait for the other witness.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I just have one question arising from what we've been looking at. Could you have a look, put back up page 659, please? Thank you. Yeah. You were taken by Mr. Maharaj to the second bullet point. Do you see that? Using air-driven pump out approximately 300 barrels of line content. Do you see that?
Correct.
Yeah. Content to be pumped in Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited slops barge. and ferried over to Lube Oil Jetty, where line content will be removed by Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, supplied vacuum truck. Now, I don't claim to understand all of that, but what I get from that is that 300 barrels or whatever was in this pipe was to be pumped out and put somewhere safe and taken away rather than pumped into the ocean. Am I right about that?
Correct.
Right. So they're saying, according to what you've told us and what Mr. Mutu was asking you, that 300 barrels, in effect, were to be taken from this pipeline.
Approximately 300 barrels.
Approximately, yes.
Approximately.
Do you know first of all, whose responsibility was it to do that? Was that LMCS's responsibility or was it Paria's?
I am unsure. I'll have to refer to the scope of works requirements.
Right.
But I know Paria would have access to the SLUPS badge and a vacuum
truck. Well, it says so, doesn't it? It's there.
Yes, correct. Paria will provide a SLUPS badge and a vacuum truck to carry it to a storage tank.
Do you know if there is some method by which you can measure how much is coming out of the pipe?
I don't know, but I will speculate they do. I don't know.
Don't speculate.
I don't
have other witnesses.
Yeah,
I'm just asking if you knew. You don't.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'll ask somebody else.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have anything they want to ask arising? I hope not. Good. Because that means we'll probably take our break now, a little bit earlier than we would otherwise, but it's probably a convenient point at which to do so. Thank you very much indeed for coming. Appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And you're free to go.
Okay.
You can stay or leave as you choose. Mr. Peterson, you look exercised by something.
No, sir. No. Nothing. I was telling him we'll take a break now and we'll call. I was telling him that you said he'd take a break now and then we'll call we after.
Yes.
He's present.
How do we pronounce his name? I'm not quite sure. Is it we or
we have been struggling with that for a while, sir.
Well,
we have versions. It's not Gilbertson, though. But,
one thing is for sure, it's not, is it?
The amount of,
forgive me, I don't know why I keep doing it. I think it's because you introduced me, you told me that your son is here.
Yes, he is. The amount of heckle I've gotten over that.
Yes, you may never live it down.
I think it's we, Michael, we.
All right, lovely, thanks. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Mr. Peterson.